James Fenimore Cooper, 1789 to 1851, grew up at Otsego Hall, his father's manorial estate near Lake Otsego in upstate New York. Educated at Yale, he spent 5 years at sea as a foremast hand, and then as a midshipman in the Navy. At 30, he was suddenly plunged into a literary career when his wife challenged his claim that he could write a better book than the English novel he was reading to her. The result was Precaution, 1820, a novel of manners. His second book, The Spy, 1821, was an immediate success. And with The Pioneers, 1823, he began his series of leather stocking tales. By 1826, when The Last of the Mohicans appeared, I loved the movie. And it's again about that fight that I was talking about when I was reading Maul Flanders and talking about the New World and Defoe's romantic view of it. It's about the war of settlement between the English and the French, I think, and the natives and many other parties. His standing as a major novelist was clearly established from 1826 to 1833. Cooper and his family lived and traveled in France, Switzerland, Italy, and Germany. Two of his most successful works, The Prairie and The Red Rover, were published in 1827. He returned to Otsego Hall in 1834, and after a series of relatively unsuccessful books of essays, travel sketches, and history, he returned to fiction and to leather stocking with The Pathfinder, 1840, and The Deer Slayer, 1841. In his last decade, he faced declining popularity brought on in part by his waspish attacks on critics and political opponents. Just before his death in 1851, an edition of his works led to a reappraisal of his fiction and somewhat restored his reputation as the first of American writers. Donald A. Ringe is a professor of English at the University of Kentucky. He has published numerous articles on American literature and has written 4 books. James Fenimore Cooper, Charles Brockton Brown, The Pictorial Mode, Space and Time in the Art of Bryant, Irving and Cooper, An American Gothic Imagination and Reasoning in 19th Century Fiction. He serves on the editorial board of the Sunny edition of the writings of James Fenimore Cooper, and with his late wife edited Lionel Lincoln for that edition. He has also served a 4-year term on the board of editors of American literature. So The Pioneers by James Fenimore Cooper with an introduction by Donald A. Ringe. Quickly read. When Cooper wrote The Pioneers, he was still very much a beginning novelist. His first book, Precaution, had been a weak imitation of British manners fiction. His second, The Spy, a very successful romance of the American Revolution. The Pioneers, his third, was Cooper's attempt to repeat his success with another novel based on American materials and depicting American life. Published in 1823, the book was an immediate success and established him in a career as a professional novelist, but The Pioneers did more. It became the first of the series of books, The Leather Stocking Tales, for which the author is best remembered, and it introduced a character, Natty Bumppo, the frontiersman, who would eventually assume mythic proportions in the American consciousness. Cooper returned to him in 4 additional books, The Last of the Mohicans, The Prairie, The Pathfinder, and The Deer Slayer. All lay in the future, but the seed for them was firmly planted when Leatherstocking shoots the deer in Chapter 1 of The Pioneer, steps from the woods, and begins his long quarrel with Judge Temple. Writing The Pioneer must have been a labor of love. Cooper set his book in a place that had long and happy associations for him, the village of Cooperstown, called Templeton in the novel, that his father had founded at the foot of Otsego Lake. Brought there as an infant in Brought there as an infant in 1790, James, the youngest of Judge William Cooper's son, grew up in the kind of environment he describes in The Pioneer, and many of the genre pictures he draws are surely based on his boyhood experience. So it's a long introduction. I'm going to cut it short only till here, and maybe read from the back flag. This is just the beginning of my readings of these novels, and I'm delighted and honored to share them with you. In this classic novel, Cooper portrays life in a new settlement on New York's Lake Otsego in the closing years of 18th century. He describes the year's cycle, the turkey shoot at Christmas, the tapping of maple trees, fishing for bass in the evening, marshalling of the militia. But Cooper is also concerned with exploring the development of the cultural and philosophical underpinnings of the American experience. He writes of the conflicts within the settlement itself, focusing primarily on the contrast between the natural codes of the hunter and woodsman Natty Bumppo and his Indian friend John Mohegan, and the more rigid structure of law needed by a more complex society. Quite possibly America's first bestseller, more than 3,000 copies were sold within hours of publication. The Pioneer today evokes a vibrant and authentic picture of the American pioneering experience. Wow, we'll be waiting to read it more, but thank you for sharing this with me. The quick drive through sort of reading, but it's really good to, I would love to read The Spy first. Let's see when I get to it.